Any committee reports? Nope. Administrative update, Dr. Thompson?
Thank you, Madam President. First on, in our administrative updates tonight, we have a special guest. Mrs. Capo has asked this gentleman to come in and provide us with some educational words on some things that we've been looking at. So, Mrs. Capo?
I'd like to present Mr. Russell Baltus. He is an expert in tax increment financing, community reinvestment areas and abatements, and he's going to give us some information about possibilities with the Champion Farm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know what you guys want me. Is this okay?
Yeah,
I heard, yeah. Again, my name is Russ Balthus. Thank you for having me. I'm an attorney with Squire Patton Boggs. I'm in our public infrastructure and finance group, and my practice is pretty much exclusively economic development. So I represent either school districts or cities or villages and doing tax increment financing, development agreements, school compensation agreements, things along those lines. So I was asked to kind of give a very kind of general overview of how tax increment financing works, what the school district's role and rights would be in that type of a discussion. I'm also more than happy to answer any questions. I will do the big caveat that tax increment financing and CRA law can get quite complicated. Lots of nuance can make a difference. So if you feel like I'm changing what I said, it's probably because there's a nuance, and I'll try to point out why that is. So it can be frustrating, so I always like to point that out first. So what CRAs and TIFs both do as a general rule is they exempt the real property taxation for the increase in valuation of the property. So if you have a piece of land and let's say $5,000 a year is being paid in property taxes, somebody builds an improvement, now it's $100,000. The increase, that $5,000 stays the same, continues to go to the county, distributed to the school districts, all that, but that improvement, lots of different things can happen with that. With a CRA, that tax can just be abated, which means it doesn't have to be paid at all, and that benefits the person who bought that property and is developing it. Or tax increment financing is they still pay that amount, but instead of it going to the county and then being distributed to the schools, the county, and everybody else, it would go to the municipality that created the TIF, and then that money would be available for public infrastructure improvements and certain restricted uses that help support the infrastructure to make that project happen. So the idea is they're a common tool to encourage development. They happen all the time. The entities that get impacted the most are school districts, because school districts are the largest recipient of property taxes in pretty much every scenario in Ohio. So the school districts have certain rights in that process. It starts with if a municipality is going to exempt property for the TIF, so this period of time is more than 10 years, or if they're going to exempt more than 75% under a TIF, then the school district is entitled to consent. If they do not consent, it's not approved. So you would get what's called a 45 business day notice when you receive that. You would look at it. It should have a copy of the TIF ordinance. It should talk about the area. It should talk a bit about the improvements. And the purpose of that is to create, a collaborative discussion between the village and the school district or whatever entity it is doing the TIF to work out a compensation agreement. If the school district says no, then the project cannot be exempted at that level. Municipalities can exempt up to 10 years, up to 75% without school district consent. They then only have to give you what's called a 14-day notice. You're obviously welcome to come to the meetings. People can speak against it or in favor, whatever the school district's position is. But that's something a municipality can do by right under the Ohio Revised Code. The other thing that you'll sometimes see is they'll do what's called a non-school TIF, which means they'll do it for 30 years. They'll exempt 100%, but the school district gets all of the funds that it would receive as if the TIF hadn't even happened. So they keep the school district whole. Those are referred to commonly as non-school TIFs.
So in that case, the municipality gives up the municipality abates, but the school district is still made whole.
Correct. With the people who really would then lose taxes, the city might lose or the village might lose a little if they have real estate, but the county would lose a significant portion. Those are the funds that would be exempted that would then come to the village or whatever entity instead that they could then use to widen the road to make the project possible or whatever the incentive is. And depending on the type of TIFs, there's different uses for the funds. Some are limited to public uses. Some can be available for private use. They can put money in to help build the private project. That's permissible under Ohio law. Another thing that school districts should be mindful of is even in a scenario where there's a TIF and you aren't required to give consent, so like a 10-year, 75% TIF, if there's over $1 million of new payroll, you are entitled to income tax sharing if there's new jobs. And again, that can get tricky and there's a lot of moving parts. It's $1 million if it's a TIF. If it's a CRA, it's a $2 million threshold. It's adjusted each year for inflation. So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing with CRAs, and again, I apologize if I'm going too fast, slow me down. With CRAs,
We'll watch the video back.
yeah, there you go. It's all good. Yeah, I should quit using my hands then. But with CRAs, it used to be, so you might hear this, the law up until about a year or two ago was that they could do up to 50% without school district approval for up to 15 years for commercial projects. That recently changed in the last year or so to now they can do up to 75% for up to 15 years without school district approval. So just know that that was a recent, and for residential, school district approval is not required at all.
So 75%, 15 years.
Up to 15
Up
years.
to
Yep.
15 years. 75% doesn't require school approval.
For a
For
CRA.
CRA.
For a
Got it.
TIF, it would.
Okay.
Under a TIF, that would trigger because it's over the 10
Got
years.
it. Okay.
So
So
if the payroll went over $1 million at some point in that 10 years, does it then kick in that they have to, that the abatement is not applicable?
the abatement would stay applicable, but it would trigger a revenue sharing obligation of the income tax dollars. And the way that should work is that the goal, the policy goal, is that there would be a collaborative relationship between the entity and the school district, and you negotiate an agreement. If an agreement can't be reached, for whatever reason that happens, the revised code actually lays out how the income tax would be shared, which is pretty much 50-50. However, if the municipality can show that some of the money is needed for infrastructure improvements, they can take up to a 35% additional funds first off the top to pay for that infrastructure before they then split the rest. So, and then also there's case law, it can get confusing over construction jobs. How long are they there? Is it a new job? What normally happens, just practically speaking, is more often than not, school districts will waive their rights to the income tax sharing in exchange for a higher percentage of the property tax, or what would have been the property tax, mainly because entities that have income tax, they have confidentiality rules and they really don't want to be sharing all the information with you. Municipality or school districts are much more accustomed to getting money based off of the property tax system, and income tax is more flexible, and everyone's just kind of more in their comfort zones that way. So that tends to be where they go, but they don't have to. It's up to the entities.
So you mentioned, depending on the municipality that created the, whatever it was, CRA, TIF, whatever they may create, or whoever creates this project. So in our case, it happens to be 3 separate municipalities. So it's a township, a village, and a JED owning the property as a whole. And if all 3 entities sell that piece of property and it becomes whatever it's projected to be, does the school and those 3 entities, can we create and get involved in some sort of subcommittee or something that would help negotiate all these different opportunities?
Great question. The sale of property itself from one public entity to a private entity or whatever, there's no legal right for the school to be involved. But I will say, I represent a lot of cities and school districts. Usually the advice I usually give when people want it, right, is I say it's better to cooperate and to talk and a municipality is in a much better position if they know how much the school is willing to allow to be exempted, if anything, and why, and what kind of a project they would support because of benefits to the community or long term. And so I think more communication is never bad. And so the idea of getting a team together to talk about what kind of incentive package are they looking at, I think makes a lot of sense. I don't know enough about the deal or the project if they're selling it pursuant to a development agreement and the incentives are already baked into that. For actually to grant the incentives, there are statutory requirements that you receive certain amounts of notice. I would recommend it's better to start those conversations earlier than that. But the statutorily, and sometimes how they do it is they get the statutory notice, and just because you're entitled to 45 business days, it doesn't mean people can't mutually agree to more time. You do that in writing,
Right.
it's important, but you can agree to more time.
So, I kind of want to rephrase that question because I know that the three entities that I mentioned, the village, the township, and the JED, should they, who decides? Who is going to make that decision on whether or not, since all three of them are selling it as a whole piece of property, who has the governing authority to say whether it's a TIF, a CRA, or whatever it becomes?
Great question. Not the JED. The entity that has the authority would be, if it's in the village has the authority.
It's in all three.
Yeah.
It's in all three. So the village has the authority, make it easy. Okay, now the village has the authority under 570940 B to TIF it. And if it's in a CRA area, which it may or may not be, I don't know,
Okay.
it would have to be in a CRA district to do a CRA. Now, if it's not in one can be created, and there's a process for that. But, so the question is it in a CRA or is it not? There's also enterprise zone agreements, which is a whole other thing, that if it's in that, it could be exempted that way. But the village would be able to TIF it. Townships also have the ability to do TIFs. The general rules, the general concept is about the same, but the rules are a little bit different. I would guess, again, total guess, it probably would be the village.
Would the JED have any, because the whole reason that JED is created, obviously, is to help create revenue for a township.
Mhm.
So if they have a piece of the property as well, do they have I don't know, stake in the game, I guess?
They, whatever property rights they have and whatever they could receive, I mean, they could definitely have a stake, but when it comes to, can they issue a real property tax abatement? No. Can they grant a TIF or implement a CRA? No.
Okay.
Now, they are a government entity. If they owned property, they can make it tax exempt, right? You know what I mean? Just as a
Yeah,
tax exempt
exactly.
entity. So that's really the only way, as I sit here today thinking, and what I was talking about, it's the only way that they would have an impact that would impact property tax revenue. It would be the village and the township that have the right under the TIF statutes or the CRA statutes to exempt for like economic development purposes.
And you would have
So-
to agree,
yeah.
would have to agree on that TIF, like a, realistically, it could be one area, the township with the construction of roads, ingress, egress, and the actual facility sits in the village. Would they both have to have an equal say in what result is?
They both would have, if it's in both, they would both have an independent right to put the TIF in place.
Okay.
If the village TIF'd it, they would have the right. They could enter into an agreement with the township. Like if the idea is, hey, we're going to TIF it to generate this revenue, and we're going to use it to repair these township roads because they serve the parcel, they could then enter into an agreement with the township or the county for that matter, to improve the roads.
At what point in the process of selling the land and building this project does this all happen?
Great question. It depends on the nature of the deal, right? If you have and again, I know nothing about this specific deals, but if I'm a developer and I'm going to buy the property, the answer is before I actually pay for the property, right? I'm going to want to know, what are my incentives? What are my deals? Like what's,
So-
Before you sign a purchase agreement?
well, I could have it as a condition to close
Okay.
in my purchase agreement. I mean, and again, I'm just speculating here, but I mean, you think about it, it makes sense, right? If you're going to buy the property
Sure.
and you're going to build something, if your pro forma says you need certain incentives to make it work, you're going to want those incentives to be adopted.
So at some point before the end of the due diligence period is what we're talking.
Yeah, if that's the plan,
But-
you know.
That would have to be written in the agreement. Right?
I mean, I guess it wouldn't have to be, but if the
Purchase
developer wants a guarantee that they're going to happen, they would want them in the agreement. But I'm a lawyer; I would put everything in the agreement. I mean, they could,
Well, yeah,
they could say, yeah, no, we trust you. Sell us land, we'll buy the land, and then we'll do that process.
Okay.
Nothing would prohibit them. That's not
Is that
illegal.
typical?
No.
Okay.
And how could you find out if there's a pending deal? Do you have to wait? How could you find out if something like that is baked into an offer? Or a
Well, if public entities are involved, the agreement would be a public record once it's finalized.
once it's finalized?
As a draft, there would be an argument that somebody wouldn't have to share it. But you could still, I would
But
request
once
it.
if the purchase agreement is signed,
It's
that's,
a public document.
So,
Sorry, this is a lot, I know.
No, it's
all-
Yeah,
there's just-
yeah.
the timing is where I'm kind of,
yeah,
I want to know when we get involved in this.
The answer is, I guess best practices, I would say as early as possible, because I think that's just best practice. Legally, you are entitled, depending on what TIF or what CRA they're doing, the shortest period you would have is at least 14 days before the legislative authority adopts it and implements it. But if it's only a 14-day notice, it's because you really don't have a say legally. I mean, you could speak, you could share your thoughts, but
Right.
legally they can do it without your consent.
So it could be included that it says that it's for 8 years for 50%, so that doesn't meet the threshold.
Correct.
So we would not know until 14 days prior to closure.
Well, the closing isn't the notice requirement. It would be when they legally adopt the CRA or the TIF, right?
So that could be way after closing.
Could be way after. If it's a CRA, they have to be legally agreed to before construction starts.
Okay.
If it's a TIF to capture the value, you would want it done by the end of the calendar year in which construction started.
So it could have a considerable negative effect that we would not find out for quite a while unless we did the public records request to see what the abatement is.
Yeah, I mean, the argument, and again, I always like to give every argument from every side, right? Yeah,
And that's a lawyer thing.
Yeah, I know, I can't help myself. But the idea would be, in a perfect world, the argument behind these abatements is that the project doesn't happen but for the incentive, right? So the idea is whatever money you're currently receiving, you would continue to receive no matter what happens with this. The loss would be on the value of the improvement. You absolutely could lose 75% for 10 years, actually up to 15 years without your consent. And you can even lose 100% up to 15 years if it's residential. That's through a CRA district.
But doesn't the state potentially look at what we're losing from that improvement and couldn't they deduct from the state funding we get?
That's a question that I actually would defer to Jennifer, because the state funding formula is something that there's just no room for.
Yeah, so the valuation would still be calculated into our foundation payments, and they don't take into account that we're not collecting taxes on that.
That's where that phantom revenue is, right?
Phantom.
Yeah,
Yep.
there was a potential, in this big project that we're talking about, which is a data center on this piece of property, sold by the 3 entities. There has only been 1 purchase agreement signed so far, so the 2 other ones are sitting out there. The JED board asked the school district what they needed in place before they have their purchase agreement ready to go, before they enter into this agreement, what the school would need to be made whole. Because during one of our meetings in the last few weeks, we learned that there is a potential for the school district to lose quite a bit of money, a substantial amount of money, if this data center comes into town.
Due to a property tax exemption?
Phantom revenue.
Oh, through the.
Yeah,
So they're
The
asking,
state
the
funding
JED is
program.
asking, before they sell their portion of land to make this project possible, what should the school district ask them to put in place so that we can stay whole?
Is the reason the phantom revenue is only a problem, right, if the property's exempted to a CRA or a TIF. So to answer that question, we would need to know what statute is the property being exempted under, for how many years, and at what percentage. And once we would know that, and you'd have to know the value, of course, of the property, of the improvement, and then we
So
would.
we're like in a
$1
chicken and
billion.
the egg situation, because they want to know what we need to be whole before they sign the purchase agreement, and we want to know what the abatement's gonna be, and they're saying they won't know that until they sign the purchase agreement, so we're just round and round we go.
It doesn't make, the only part of that doesn't make sense to me is why they wouldn't know what the abatements are gonna be before they sign.
Agreed.
Now, the fact that it's the JED, they're not involved in that, so they. may
No,
not
it's the
know.
village.
The village already did their purchase agreement, so that's a big chunk of the land has already been agreed upon,
Mhm.
okay? From a company from California that wants to put in this data center.
Yep.
So
Those are
the other
massive
2
investments
entities
for
still
our
own some property that would be adjacent to that would probably be necessary in order for the project to go forward.
Got it.
So when we're learning of this, we're saying, well, hold on a second, time out. What is our benefit or what is our gain from this? What are the pros and cons to something like this going into that area? And
Got
so
it.
when we learned there was a potential for us to lose a substantial amount of money, it
Over $200,000 a
was a
year.
lot of money,
Got it.
we started asking some questions and we're saying we would really like to, understand this a little bit better. I guess my other question for you would be, are you able to prepare something like this for us So put some parameters in place that we can hand to them since they asked us what we needed.
Sure. I mean, what we could put together is, pretty much a list of, this is the information that we need to be able to answer your question, kind of in writing, kind of just say, could you please let us know this? Could you let us know this? Could you let us know this? And it wouldn't have to be that much. I mean, just a couple of pages of what information we would need.
Okay.
And then, which some of it they may not have, but I would assume they would have most of it. And then once we have that, we would be able to crunch numbers and figure out exactly where you would be.
No, not right now.
Okay, so stipulations could be put into the purchase agreement.
If the JED is willing to do so. I mean, we would not have a legal right to put anything in.
Yeah, but no,
Right,
not the school.
Right,
district.
yeah, but
The
they
other
could-
entities that are selling the land.
Absolutely.
So if they come
could-
to us and said, what do you guys need?
Mhm.
We're saying, this is what we need. We're gonna ask you to put this safeguard or this stipulation in here to protect us from financial loss,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I mean, if they chose to do a non-school TIF, that would exempt it, but you would still receive all the funds that you would receive. I'm just gonna pick a number out of the air. Let's say you guys get 70% of property tax dollars. For every dollar of increment, you'd still get your 70 cents, and they would get 30 cents
Right.
to pay for whatever infrastructure they need to do.
Okay, and then this might be my last question.
That's all right.
So the use of land,
Mhm.
what about something like that? Could there be a stipulation? The concern is, if it's a data center coming in and it's really gonna generate, and it's true that it's gonna generate a lot of revenue and great jobs in the area, it's great on paper.
Mhm.
What does that look like, if it's not a data center at all, and it ends up being apartment complexes, or ends up being an Amazon warehouse or something,
Mhm.
storage facilities that aren't really gonna benefit the community at all, and be an eyesore. So is there something would that be another response that we could provide to them, that in order to protect, or something else that we would like to see in that agreement would be some sort of usage of the land? Is that
I think, we could ask for anything, right? We could put anything in there. I will say that I've not seen that. Usually that comes from, usually the village or the township and the school district. Usually on those type of questions, everyone's usually kind of aligned.
okay?
With one exception being, obviously, places with income taxes are more focused on number of jobs, where school districts sometimes can be more interested in the value of the improvements, because that's how each generate their revenue. So, sometimes we look at things from different angles, but I think in terms of, if they're asking you what you would like and those things are important to you, I absolutely think you would include it.
Good, we have a list.
Yeah. I just,
The fire department too. Police
there's
department.
no legal enforceability there, right? But they have a right, if they own property and if they're selling it and they want to add certain conditions to the sale of the property, they can do that all day, and make it a condition of selling it.
Very helpful.
No, those are great questions.
How soon would you be able to prepare something? Because I understand that there could possibly be a vote on that purchase agreement in the next couple of weeks, in the next week or two.
If you get me your list of things that you guys are thinking about, if you get that to me within the next couple of days, I could turn it around within a couple of days.
I'm also gonna ask for your input.
Yeah. No, you can even and even when I say your ideas, you can even send me your ideas or just a bunch of questions, and then we could have a quick call and kind of walk through it. Be happy to do that too.
Good, thank you so much.
No, thank you. Great
Sorry
questions.
if I dominated it.
No, it's good.
Thank you guys. Great questions. Anything else?
I think we're good. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you guys so much. Appreciate
You
your
don't have to
time.
stay for the rest of the meeting.
I appreciate it. I would love to, but no.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Thompson, do you have more?
Yeah, just a few things here. Obviously, we've had a very, very busy fall, and with our kids doing a lot of wonderful things. And so while I can never cover everything, a few of the highlights that have come my way that I noticed, I'd just like to mention. Again, first of all, I just want to sincerely thank the Board of Education for taking time out of their busy lives last week and going down to Columbus to the Ohio School Board Association conference, Capital Conference, where we continue to learn ways that we can better serve the district. And I just really do appreciate your time and commitment to that. So thank you so much. Back on October 16th, our Prairie sixth graders had the opportunity to explore various career pathways through off-campus experiences known as our Share Your Genius Day. Just an amazing experience for those kids. Pathways included transportation, performing arts, fine arts, healthcare, athletics, public safety, hair and fashion, manufacturing, and aviation. Yes, students actually went up in a plane and a few took the controls. Just an amazing day for those kids. And just a great job by Rita Soder, Jody Hicks, and countless staff volunteers. Appreciate that, putting that experience together for our students. Annually, Mr. Dasinger has been in his class building the pumpkin chucking contest with our trebuchets, and we have shown consistent improvement in that event. And I think the kids had an outstanding experience again this year. We competed in the Wilby pumpkin chucking event, and took away some first and second prizes. And I think our longest throw this year was 249 feet. For a pumpkin chuck. So great job to those kids, and keep up the great work, Mr. Dasinger, in that area. Our Peeps class provided Halloween candy for the homeless. Mrs. Darnell, again, organizing our Peeps at the elementary, brought in their own Halloween candy, great bags for the homeless, where students were able to learn about empathy, watch a number of videos, and learning about reasons people become homeless, and so forth and so on. And so just a great job with our students learning about service at a very young age, and I appreciate her work there. The Welding Hub Open House was a success. Back on October 18th, we hosted an open house for the brand new Eastern Lake County Welding Hub, and it was nice to see students and families attend that. In addition, PHS students in grades 9 through 11 are invited to explore the skills trade opportunity this Friday, November 22nd, during ICE. So you need to stop down to the welding lab and meet Mr. Miller, the welding instructor, as well as Rob Walters, who teaches HVAC at Lake Erie College, and join Mr. Zuzzi and learn more about the Intro to Design and Fabrication courses. So great work there. Our show choir festival, Mrs. Singer, Mr. Miller, back in late October, took on the annual Prairie Show Choir Festival, and participants include Madison, Mentor, Geneva, Lakeside, Grand Valley, and of course our own Prairie Buccaneers featuring the Buck Band. Another great job. It's a wonderful event. Again, our kids went out to OMEA District Choir and Band contest, and in District 4 and 7, honor choir and band concerts took place at Cleveland State University a few weekends ago, and 10 students went on to represent Perry. So great job there. Hope you got out and got to see the high school fall play, I Hate Shakespeare. Thanks for Director Hunter for putting that together the weekend of 11th, 9th, and 10th. It was a successful weekend with zombies, talking cows, appearance by Jerry Springer, and it's a hilarious and fast-paced introduction of Shakespeare, and I know our kids had a ball putting it on, so great job there. Congratulations. We were a proud winner of the Bruce Brown Award of Excellence. Mr. Rockwell and Mr. Purcello went down on 11/11 to Columbus, where they accepted, on behalf of Perry High School Athletics, accepted the OIAA and OHSA Bruce Brown Award of Excellence. The objective of the award is to recognize Ohio interscholastic athletic departments who are purposefully educating and supporting the mission of education-based athletics in Ohio, and not defining success based solely upon wins and losses. The award is designed to honor and celebrate those school athletic departments that are attempting to shift the sport culture towards a genuine purpose of why sports are a part of our school and community culture in America. Congratulations to Mr. Rockwell, our coaches and support staff on a great job and for everything they do. We had the high school blood drive. Mrs. Cook put that on, and we did a great job. Thanks to the volunteers and donors. We were able to collect 28 pints of blood on November 12th. And again, the annual third grade program put on by Mrs. McMurtry in honor of veterans. Another great performance by our third graders who saluted our veterans. Included in the show was a presentation honoring veterans who are related to our third grade students and staff. Just great work. And this performance can be seen on Facebook on our page. And so it's worth a look if you weren't able to attend. Tear-jerking stuff for sure. Cake decorating competition by Mrs. Besley's class on the 15th. Congratulations to the winners of the Global Foods Cake Decorating Competition. Moana themed cake, Gracie, Aubrey, and Gia. Amazing job. I mean, what they put together, I mean, the artwork, it was just amazing. So super effort there. And then finally, real quickly, congratulations to all our fall sports teams. Once again, our kids performed at high levels, and we're very proud of them. We still have some business to take care of. Our football team, along with our cheerleaders and our marching band, and all of our fans will be heading down to Nordonia Friday night to take on Glenville in the regional final. And so we wish everybody a great performance and good luck there. And that concludes my administrative updates.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Before we move on, I wanted to make a little statement. We've been contacted by several parents and are aware of a lot of discussion on social media regarding a situation at the middle school on Friday. I can't speak to that specific situation, but what I'll say is this. We live in Perry. Kids go out after school, go fishing, play in the woods, do outdoor activities. We know this, and this is one of the things we love about living in a small, semi-rural town. Occasionally, kids bring things to school like multi-tools. To be clear, they absolutely should not have something like this at school. When this is discovered, our practice has consistently been to have the adult in the situation confiscate the item and alert the administrators. The administrators then assess the situation and examine our policy to see if the item falls under the category of a weapon. If consequences are warranted, they will enforce those. Student privacy laws prevent the school from sharing consequences and outcomes of these situations with the public. So while your perception may be that there was no punishment, you cannot be told if there was. Parents are contacted as well and told the same. Regardless of whether the policy defines these items as weapons, students cannot bring them to school. We take every threat seriously. Administration follows the procedures that we have in place to investigate to ensure that kids are safe at school. This includes talking to multiple students, parents, teachers, and authorities if necessary. If after investigating, it is determined that there's a threat to student safety, the administrators follow our procedures to communicate that threat to students or to parents and families. Our children watch what we do and how we behave. They watch how we treat each other online and in person. They watch how we talk about each other and to other children. When adults go to social media without knowledge of all of the facts of a situation, it creates fear, panic, and hurts our kids and our community. If you hear something concerning, please reach out to the school to confirm the facts of the situation. If you feel there's a threat that needs to be communicated, the Safe School Helpline is available 24/7. Our teachers, administrators, and board are available and more than willing to have conversations. Our children also attend these schools, and safety is always our first priority. That said, I think we're time for public participation. To explain public participation, I always reiterate that this is a meeting of the board in public and not a public meeting. We do not go back and forth with you, so if you ask a question, we will get a hold of you later to discuss it further in depth if need be. But this is not meant to be a back and forth conversation. We're happy to hear your concerns. We're always happy to talk whenever you want to talk further about this after the fact. Each comment is limited, each person is limited to 3 minutes of commenting, and Mrs. Foley, you'll keep track of the time for us?
Sure.
And then we'll move on to the next. Is there anything I'm missing?
State your name and address.
Oh, yes, please state your name and address before you begin speaking. Mrs. Trina, did you have someone? Okay. Mrs. Grega?
Hey everybody, my name is Jennifer Grega. I live at 4039 Southbridge Road here in Perry Township. Mrs. Drexler, I appreciate what you just said. Part of what I want to talk about are safety concerns that I feel like, while I appreciate what you said, I have to disagree. We do have a small town, but we have to realize it's 2024. We need to stop acting like this small town is Mayberry, because it's not. We have children who have mental health issues that are not addressed by our system, that are not addressed in our school, that can't always be addressed at home. And that's through no fault of what you do or what the administration does or what the school does. That's just the reality of life in 2024. Not everyone can get the help they need. Not everyone has the social structure at home or the social economic structure to get that help. When we have issues, which I have a set of twins, they're 8 and I have a 6-year-old. 2 of my 3 kids have been bullied for the last year and a half straight. I mean hardcore, bitten, hit, knocked over, still happening. When I tell them, like I did, received Dr. Thompson's email at 10 p.m. on a Sunday. I was ready to go to bed. I thought we had a pretty good weekend. One of the things that terrifies me, because I personally have been in lockdown from gun violence 3 times in my life. Once with my twins being a year and a half old, hiding in the Menor Mall from a shooter. Once in another country, which obviously isn't anything to do with here, but the other time was in a workplace. I don't want my children to experience that ever. So my thoughts, well, we might want our kids to experience like we did, and this is gonna tell you how old I am. Growing up in the 1990s, it's not the same world. Acting like it is a public disservice that hinges on the precipice of horrible consequences. When we go to the airport on vacation, we don't tell our child, oh, you're about to be traumatized going to Disney World because we're gonna ask you to go through a metal detector. We don't. They don't get traumatized being searched. They don't get traumatized having their suitcase opened in front of people. To act like putting those things in our school, a metal detector on every door that you enter into. You're not searching people's bags. You're not violating their personal rights or their personal property. You're looking at public safety. Safety of our teachers, safety of our staff, safety of our children. We have wonderful SROs and we have staff who are doing everything above and beyond that they can do, but it's 2024. I know we live in a small town, all 3 of them that we exist in and we go between, the village and the township and North Perry. But we need to take the blinders off, folks. Our kids are coming home worried about this. I remember the first school shooting in Columbine. I was a junior in high school. I watched it on TV live because I was on spring break.
Thank you, Mrs. Gregg. I have 3 minutes. You ready for the next one? Mr. Clutter?
I'm a teacher, so I don't like standing behind. Sorry. My name's Ronald Benjamin Clutter. I am from 4067 Castlewood Court. On Friday, my wife went to pick up my child at school. Mr. Guestwich brought my wife back to his office and said that a student had reported a threat made by my child. He interviewed my child, investigated with other students, and determined that no threat, or that the threat was a rumor. I was on speakerphone during this time. Mr. Guestwich stated that he did not believe my child made any threatening statements. We went through a very thorough interview. During the investigation, my child's bags were searched and nothing concerning was found. My child repeatedly stated that no such statements were made. At the end of the discussion, Mr. Guestwich and us and my wife and I were told that the child was in clear and that there was no further action needed to be taken at this time. Saturday morning, a member of the Perry Village Police Department, Officer Collins, came to our house to investigate the report made to their office. He suggested we go inside. I agreed because I wanted him to see the inside of my house, just to make how clear it is the household that I live in. We went inside and we had a discussion. During the interview, the officer stated that he had been made aware of was not aware of the events of the previous day, and that we were in the clear and that there was no clear and present threat at that time. As you are aware, an all-school message went out late Sunday night addressing the events of Friday. As I am sure you have noticed, there have been significant chatter on social media about these events, and many parents exercised the right to keep their students home from school on Monday. I have a few concerns brought to light by this event. First, the breakdown in communication between the school, the community, and the police force. Had an all-call email been sent Friday, I believe that many parents would have felt better about the whole situation. Had the school made the village police aware, then Saturday, they would have reassured the parent and it would have sped up the investigation. I appreciate that the school follows FERPA and all the communication, and because of this, the parents have to trust the school is doing their due diligence in all threat reports. As a teacher, I ask myself, what do I know? What don't I know? What can I not know? And you cannot know what discipline has gone on with my child. I can't know what discipline's going on with your child. That's the way it works. It's unfortunate, but also it is fortunate because it's my business. It's my household. I take care of my business. All right. So the fact remains that both the school and the police department determined the rumor to be false and my child to have done nothing wrong. And yet they are being tried in the court of public opinion on Facebook. My second concern deals with the
Mr.
pattern.
Clutter, I'm sorry, that's 3 minutes. There's a second participation at the end of
Yeah.
the meeting if anyone wants to go further.
All right. My last concern is the bullying that he has endured.
Ms. Carringer?
Start. All right. I'm Tricia Carringer. I live at 3301 Azalea Ridge, Grand Prairie. A lot of you may or may not know that I actually was in the schools for the past 7 years. While, you know, I didn't see a lot going on as far as emails of different things, it seems like more recently, like in 2024 or recent years, that this is more common. And I think a big thing that is hurting me as a parent is the lack of communication that we're getting from you guys. I'm going to think about maybe 6 to 8 weeks ago, I was in contact with a high school for something that my daughter had told me and brought home, and shared with me along with some other parents, which of course is hearsay, but I wanted to find out for myself, exactly what had happened. I was basically told, well, this happened, and as much as you guys could tell me, but I felt like I was kind of being pushed aside, like I was being, things were brushed under the rug. With that being said, I was like, well, where else can I go? And the past 7 years working in this district, I never felt the courage, or I guess courage is probably a good word to use, to come here and to express those feelings. But now as a parent and solely as a parent, I feel like it's not, better time than never. With this incident that went on Friday, regardless of, things you can and can't say, obviously it's a big thing with you guys not communicating. I'll just say administration in general. Do I feel like you guys could have done a better job? Absolutely. I know there's things you guys can't say because of laws, and thinking on how I was going to speak tonight, I thought to myself, you know what, coming in here and being angry and hostile and all that was not a good way to approach this. At least in my opinion, and I think a lot of parents probably would agree, how can we help you guys do a better job for our kids? I feel like there's a lot of times where, we can criticize all we want, but at the end of the day, I feel like we need to go through here and say, all right, these kids are our priority. We want to trust you guys. When they go on the bus, when we drop them off, our kids are the #1 priority, as are yours, if they're in this district or anywhere else for that matter. And I feel like we could probably do a better job. And if that, requires us to kind of help you guys with, if there's laws in place that maybe we need to maybe stand up for to help our kids. Whatever it is, we want to make sure that they're safe, no matter if they're preschool, high school, it doesn't matter, anywhere between, because I think we have a really unique situation where all these schools are, in one central location. And I know you have different things in place, different protocols of safety and whatnot, but I feel like also that it's not enough. The cops were here the past day or so. I'm not sure how many were here today. That's awesome. But I feel like at the end of the day, if somebody's really trying to do harm, they're going to do it no matter what. I hate to be the Debbie Downer on that. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say. And if anybody wants to follow up, they are more than welcome to. But anyway, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. McAllister?
I can't.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Alexandra McAllister. I live at 4591 Lockwood Road in North Perry. I was hesitant to speak here tonight, as countless community members and parents have told me it will fall on deaf ears, that the board and the school administration do not take parent concerns, complaints, or suggestions seriously, that rarely, if ever, any kind resort in any type of change. I refuse to believe that, as I hold this board and Perry's administration to a very high standard, one I hope that you hold for yourselves. It is extremely concerning to me as a parent that the school will confiscate a multi-tool, investigate claims regarding an automatic weapon, and not notify parents. When another community had an incident, Perry was able to send out a communication within minutes, assuring our parents the students were safe. When an old online post of another community began circulating again, Perry was able to issue a communication immediately. But when there is a legitimate concern within the walls of our school, the administration took it upon themselves to investigate and disregard the comments as non-credible and keep that information from parents. Only after numerous calls and pressure did the school finally decide to send out a communication at 10 p.m. on a Sunday night, leaving parents with little to no time to make arrangements to pull their students from class for the next morning. This makes parents and the community feel as if the school and the board are hiding all the real issues, sweeping them under the rug and just painting the illusion that everything is perfect at the schools. The community is not asking for perfection. The community is asking for transparency, collaboration, and change. Furthermore, I've heard from community members, village police officers, Perry staff, and even board members that they wish Perry would do more in regards to these threats, do more when it comes to bullying, do more when it comes to communication. So I challenge the board. I challenge you to be the team that is proactive, the team who creates real change, who institutes a zero policy on discussion of any gun violence, video game related or not, on school property. Because what I can promise you is you would much rather be the board and the administration that it deals with parents over strict punishments than the ones telling the parents that their students were harmed within the walls of our school.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak. I guess I'm the elder statesman here, being here 10 years. And I know some of you, I don't know all of you, my kids are older. They all graduated from Perry. My wife has taught in Perry for 33 years. She's ready to retire. If you feel that this board is deliberately hiding investigations, deliberately holding back news to our parents, it's not true. It's not. I didn't receive a phone call about this situation until Sunday from the parent of somebody who's involved with some of the accusations. I don't know all these things. My wife was out of the classroom on Friday, but it is a different time. It's 2024, and it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks that our kids have to go through this. It also sucks that they're exposed to so much more, and they have these things to communicate with each other. We as a district have to balance getting our kids educated in a safe environment and what the true threats are. The reason you didn't hear about this until Sunday is because this happened on Friday. It takes a few days to investigate it. It takes time to talk to the parents. It takes time to talk to the kids, the students. Sorry, we can't push these things. The reason communication was sent out about another district where there was a shooting was because there was a shooting. It wasn't just a threat. And we also have to balance threats that we hear on a daily basis, dozens of them. We all chatter amongst each other. We hear about them. You might not hear about them all. You might be freaked out if you knew everything that was said in a classroom during the day. But please, from me, I'm not going to speak for the entire board. Please don't think that we're holding something back and trying to sweep things under the rug. We just have to do things in a balanced and fair way. We have to do it with the regard of both sides of the students, both sets of parents, and what's best for the district. If you really want us to send out, every time we hear about a threat, probably wouldn't send your kids here. You wouldn't send your kids to any school. We have lobbied for SROs. We've hired our own SROs. We brought in speakers to talk about these things. We brought in speakers to talk about bullying on a constant basis. That's how we are trying to take accountability, okay? But don't hesitate to reach out to a board member. You're not going to be swept under the rug. We will tell you what we can. It might be frustrating to you. It might be frustrating to you to voice your opinions to us and us not be able to respond to them. And we take your opinions at value. We were elected here by you. We hope you trust us. But after being here 10 years and seeing what this board has done continually to keep our kids as safe as possible in a wide open campus, we want a metal detector at every door. We're going to be buying 50 metal detectors. We have SROs. We have a police department across the street. We try to do everything possible. So I just wanted to throw that out there because, no, just because I could.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you.
Consent agenda. Item A, review of minutes. The board is asked to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of October 15th, 2024, the special meeting of October 4th, 2024, and the emergency meeting of October 21st, 2024.
Are we only taking a couple of
Excuse me.
speakers?
Whoever had signed up. If you want to sign up for the second half, I think we can.
Oh, those two separate?
There was
It
just,
was confusing with the attendance sheet right next to it.
We have one at the beginning and at the end of the meeting.
yeah, there's just, because it says the request to address the board that sits out there, so we can certainly pass this around for the second half of the meeting.
I'm missing my child stuff.
The board,
I just want to state, I think everybody spoke
I'm
very
sorry,
well.
I'm sorry. Thank you,
Everybody
but this
spoke
is
very well, and you
not
guys
the
should
time
really
for it.
work on your
Thank you. We appreciate your
pushing
feedback, and
towards the
please feel free
families
to
so
call
the
us
families are
anytime.
aware.
Thank you. The board hereby waives the public reading of these minutes and shall post them accordingly. Item B, donations. The board is asked to accept the following donations from sources indicated for the deposit into the account and/or department listed as recommended by the chief financial officer. Item C, approval of consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Foley,
yes.
Mr. Leidig,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Custer,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealy.
Yes. Dr. Thompson, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Truster. Under Superintendent's Report 8, Personnel Acceptance of Resignation, the board is asked to accept the resignation of the individual listed for the position noted as recommended by the local superintendent. Under B, Personnel Approval of Employment, the board is asked to approve the individual noted for the position indicated pending successful completion of required employment paperwork, background check, and certification as recommended by the local superintendent. Under C, Personnel Approve of Change of Position, the board is asked to approve the change of position for the individual noted as recommended by the local superintendent and athletic director. Under D, Personnel Approval of Employment Curriculum, the board is asked to approve the employment of the individuals listed to complete the curriculum work at the rate of pay of $36 per hour and for the maximum number of hours indicated as recommended by the local superintendent and assistant superintendent. Under E, Personnel Approval Appointment, 24-25 non-athletic supplemental update, the board is asked to approve the correction action noted previously approved on July 30, 2024 as recommended by the local superintendent and building principal. Under F, Personnel Approval Appointment 24-25 supplemental, the board is asked to approve the individual listed for the 24-25 supplemental noted as recommended by the local superintendent and building principal. Under G, Personnel Approval of Appointment Athletic Supplementals, the board is asked to approve the employment of the individuals listed for the 24-25 athletic supplemental position and rate of pay indicated pending successful completion of required employment paperwork, certification, training, and background check as recommended by the local superintendent and athletic director. Under H, Personnel Approval Appointment Athletic Volunteers, the board is asked to approve the individuals listed as volunteers for the 24-25 sport noted pending successful completion of background check and certification as recommended by the local superintendent and athletic director. Under I, Personnel Approval Appointment Student Worker Communications, the board is asked to approve the employment of the student listed for the 24-25 position and rate of pay indicated not to exceed 700 hours as recommended by the local superintendent and director of communications. J, Personnel Approval Appointment Student Worker, TAC Lifeguard. The board is asked to approve the employment of the students listed for the 24-25 position, rate of pay indicated, not to exceed 700 hours as recommended by the local superintendent and athletic director. K, Personnel Approval of Appointment Substitutes. The board is asked to approve the individuals noted for the 24-25 daily substitute position listed, pending successful completion of required employment paperwork, certification, and background check as recommended by the local superintendent. L, Approval of board policies, first reading. The board is asked to consider the following revised board policies as a first reading for the future action as recommended by the local superintendent. Draft policies available for review below. Approval of an out-of-state field trip to Chicago, Illinois. The board is asked to approve the out-of-state field trip for PSL students to Chicago, Illinois, December 5th to the 8th, as recommended by the local superintendent and building principal. This trip will be supervised by PSL teachers. And there's no cost to the board for this trip other than the use of the school van for transportation. And approval of EEB corrective action. The board is asked to approve the corrective action noted below item I of the exempt employees benefit previously approved June 25th, 2004 and effective August 1st, 2024 as recommended by the local superintendent. And this concludes my superintendent's report.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Leidig,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Custer,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealy,
Yes.
Mrs. Foley.
Yes.
Mrs. Capo, Chief Financial Officer's report.
Thank you. A, approval of financial reports. The board is asked to approve the financial reports from October 2024 as recommended by the Chief Financial Officer. B, approval of the 5-year forecast. The board is asked to approve the 5-year forecast as presented by the Chief Financial Officer. C, approval of repayment agreement. The board is asked to approve the repayment agreement below as recommended by the Chief Financial Officer. D, approval of intra-district shared equipment agreement. The board is asked to approve a 2024-2025 intra-district shared equipment agreement with Madison Local Schools for the Real Care Baby Infant Simulators as recommended by the local superintendent and building principal. E, approval of payment in lieu. The board is asked to approve the payment in lieu of transportation for the students listed during the 2024-2025 school year as noted below, as recommended by the local superintendent and transportation director. This resolution to declare transportation impractical for certain identified students is presented pursuant to the requirements of the Ohio Revised Code, Section 3327, and the procedures set forth by the Ohio Department of Education. The resolution follows careful evaluation of all other available options prior to consideration of impracticality. And this concludes my Chief Financial Officer's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Keefe. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Ms. Cable, can you give us a little overview of the?
I was gonna say, 5-year forecast?
Yeah,
Forecast?
forecast.
Yes.
Did you guys have a copy of it?
Yes.
Okay. Overall, there weren't very many changes from May. I just want to reiterate that it is just a tool. It's not a set plan. There's nothing certain about a 5-year forecast. Just a tool we use with the information we have at this time to see where we are and to look for challenges we might be facing in the future. Looking at this particular 5-year forecast, the main takeaway is that we are in a very solid position financially. We actually expect a surplus this year, due mostly to an increase in some property tax collections because of the revaluation. Next year, we're looking good, no deficit spending there. We do see deficit spending in the last 3 years, but that is typical of a 5-year forecast. There's just too much uncertainty there. And again, there are things that we can do to mitigate that we most certainly will. So it's not anything certain, but even if we did nothing and everything played out exactly the way this is, we still finish fiscal year 29 with over $9 million cash balance, which is 30% of our expenditures in that year. And a healthy cash balance is considered anywhere between 25 and 40%. So we're doing great there. So overall, very solid financial position right now. Shouldn't need a levy for at least 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Trebsker?
Yes.
Mrs. Seoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Sorry, I lost my page. Any unfinished business? So under new business, we have a draft of the 25-26 school calendar. Did anyone have any feedback on that?
Yes, we've been at this for a few years.
Mhm.
And as we continue to try to, look at being creative, understand there's some parameters that we have to follow. There's teacher contract, an agreement, and a number of days that we have to include in our calendar. We understand, that it's tough to come back in August and get the things done we need to get done. But based on all the information we have, we put together, a calendar that we think, provides some balance. It gives some time for professional development and gives, especially in those winter months, maybe a couple 3-day weekends to break the monotony, which can happen in Ohio in January, February, and March. So, we'll ask for approval on this in January. So this is out there as an exhibit. Over the years, I've gotten a lot of recommendations, suggestions, and it's like, remember, it's like pushing Jello. You take it here, it's going to go somewhere else, and so everything has its balances. But again, we're always looking for suggestions. and looking for ways to improve the calendar and serve our kids at the highest possible way that we can. So I look forward to those discussions. This is a one-year request. There was a day when we'd approved 3 years of calendar, but I don't see that happening anytime soon, as we'll continue to dig in at this and try to get some things done. And Mr. Lighty, you can stop smiling at me. Okay, I hear you. And so that's what we have, but we got a couple months, and so let's dig in. And we've already gotten some. I got an email today with some interesting recommendations that I'll pass on to you guys, and we'll see what we get to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Correspondence and announcements. We have nothing. Upcoming meetings. There's no classes to be held on November 27th to 29th, 2024 for Thanksgiving break. The next regular Board of Education meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, December 17th, 2024 at 5:45 p.m. in the Tarbuck Center Conference Room. Public participation. Is the form out there somewhere?
Here it is. Is there another item? This
I
one?
have the same one, I think.
Is there a second page?
She's running.
Nothing else? Okay. Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G4, I hereby move that the board adjourn to executive session for the purpose of preparing for negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. There will be no business conducted after this. Is there a second?
So
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Metzger?
Yes.
Mrs. Scioli?
Yes.
Mrs. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Leidig?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
I'm saying.
We could say no.